Tonight, we want to talk about Prajna Paramita, or the perfection of, sometimes translated, most often probably translated as perfection of wisdom. Um, Having been reading Norman Fisher, he prefers understanding, and I like it. I like how he presents that. I won't go into it here, but I wanted to say something about this reading, and I know some of you are reading along with this. But if you were to read only one section of Norman's book, The World Could Be Otherwise, and if I could recommend a section that you would read again and again and again, it would be these 29 pages on the sixth paramita, or the perfection of understanding. Uh, and maybe as I'm talking here, I'll try to explain why. So over the course of the year, I think we began maybe in January. I don't remember exactly, but excuse me. The idea was once a month we would touch on one of these, and we're about on track. We've talked about the first five of the paramitas, or perfections. Dana Paramita, which is generosity. Sila Paramita, which is ethical conduct. Kshanti Paramita, which is patience. Virya Paramita, joyful effort. And Dhyana Paramita, or meditation. And each time we took on a new one, we reminded ourselves, that in Zen and in Buddhism more broadly, it can be a bit overwhelming. There are lists and lists and lists. One teacher even said of Dogen that they thought he was kind of a maniacal list maker, and there was another message in there with all of his many lists. Um, but that we shouldn't be overwhelmed by this. There's no urgency for us to grasp all of this right now. It shouldn't make us feel like we're lacking anything, or that we need to hurry to catch up and everybody else gets this and I don't. The paramitas, like the precepts, like the 16 precepts, are really a lifelong practice. And just, again, my opinions here, and my opinions will suffuse this, so take it all with a grain of salt. But my opinion is that just like koans, they can and should be taken in small bites, slowly over time, and consumed carefully and without rushing. So 6 months was a nice time. The first four of these paramitas are more familiar aspects of how we might conduct ourselves. And they're not really exclusive to Zen practice or to Buddhism. Generosity, ethical conduct, patience, effort. Though each one of those has a subtle aspect, for instance, with Dana Paramita, or generosity, when we present this, we talk about the ways that generosity can manifest itself in our behavior, my behavior, hopefully. But at the end, at some point we say, there really is no generosity. Nothing can be given. There is nothing to give. There's no giver and there's no receiver. So with all four of these, there's always that aspect, but otherwise they are known to us. They are characteristics, and ways to be that we might strive for, and that would be familiar, let's say, in the West. They're not esoteric on the surface. Norman Fisher says that he feels these first four paramitas are, quote, I love this line, and Norman's a poet, so I love some of his words, perfumed by or suffused with understanding. And that they do not exist without understanding. And understanding is the sixth paramita. It's Prajna Paramita. The fifth paramita, dhyana, or meditation, begins to become more esoteric. Meditation is not unknown in the West, let's say, just to keep on that example. But to the extent that it's pervasive in Asian thought or religion or practice, it's not what we normally encounter in the West. And it's largely outside of the daily experiences of many, certainly of most non-native Westerners. And just as a quick aside, and some of you can maybe speak to this too, but Sokyo, I'm sure. I really notice that when we're talking and listening with our Lakota friends and elders, this way of being still is very familiar to them. It's not esoteric or foreign. It's ancient and right up out of the ground. But that's the fifth paramita, meditation or dhyana. But now we arrive at Prajna Paramita, or the perfection of wisdom, or the perfection of understanding. And from here on out, I'll use the term understanding. It's said that meditation or dhyana and understanding, or prajna, go hand in hand. Understanding arises when meditation develops in all the aspects of our lives, or when we develop our meditation in all the aspects of our lives. It's there. It manifests itself. Yet we can't cause it to arise. We can't cause understanding to arise. We can't learn it, and we can't acquire it. We can't have it, we can't hold it, we can't defend it, we can't protect it. And as a result, this Prajna Paramita is elusive, slippery, difficult, if not impossible, to describe or hold on to. So naturally, we let go of it. And the words describing it are empty and they fall short, but naturally, we try anyway. And part of the anyway is we have the Heart Sutra. And in our weekly cycle, we chant the Heart Sutra once a week. In most Zen centers, we chant this Heart Sutra every day. In session, we definitely chant it every day. And the Heart Sutra, despite the emptiness and the falling short of words, it boldly steps forward and describes Prajna Paramita, or the perfection of understanding, in detail. In real detail. The full name for we tended to say Heart Sutra, but translated backwards, it's Maha Prajna Paramita Shingyo, which I actually think is mixing up Sanskrit and Japanese, if I'm reading this properly, or the Great Perfection of Understanding Heart Sutra. That's the full title of the Heart Sutra. Japanese people more often might just call it the Shingyo. There's something in rereading this section in Norman Fisher's book that I missed before, and I wasn't aware of this, and I still haven't found a second view on this, but I'm going to trust him. And for the thousands of times I've repeated the words of the Heart Sutra, I didn't know this. Norman claims that the Heart Sutra is presented, or it's the voice of Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin. Maybe everybody here but me knows this, because it sounds like someone is speaking to Kuan Yin. That's always how I took that. But he says that it is the voice of Kuan Yin, or the great compassionate Bodhisattva. It's not the Buddha. It's not Manjushri. Which makes it that much more interesting to me. Kuan Yin, or I fall back on the Chinese, Avalokiteshvara, or Kanzeon in Japanese, is the Bodhisattva of love and compassion. Yet this sutra could not be more kind of left brain. I don't want to say analytical, but it's like a logical argument. It's not very heart-y. It's not very compassion-y. But it describes in detail what emptiness or impermanence are, or rather, more to the point, what they're not. Let me read it. I won't chant it, I'll read it to you. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva doing deep Prajna Paramita, which is what we're talking about, clearly saw emptiness of all the five conditions, thus completely relieving misfortune and pain. O Shariputra, form is no other than emptiness, emptiness is no other than form. Form is exactly emptiness, and emptiness exactly form. Sensation, conception, discrimination, awareness are all likewise like this. O Shariputra, all dharmas are forms of emptiness, and they're not born, they're not destroyed, they're not stained, not pure, they're without loss and without gain. So in emptiness there is no form, no sensation, no conception, no discrimination or awareness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. No color, sound, smell, taste, touch, or phenomena. None of those things at all. No realm of sight, no realm of consciousness. No ignorance and no end to ignorance. No old age and death, and no end to old age and death. No suffering, and no cause of suffering. No extinguishing, no path, no wisdom, and no gain. No gain, and thus the Bodhisattva lives Prajna Paramita with no hindrance in the mind. No hindrance, therefore no fear. Far beyond deluded thoughts, this is nirvana. All past, present, and future Buddhas live Prajna Paramita. Live this sixth of the perfections. And therefore attain Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, or perfect enlightenment. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is the great mantra, the vivid mantra, the best mantra, the unsurpassable mantra. It completely clears all pain. There's no equivocation there at all. It completely clears all pain. This is the truth, not a lie. So set forth this Prajna Paramita mantra. Set forth this mantra and say, Gate, Gate, Paragate, Parasam Gate. Bodhisvaha, Prajna, Heart Sutra. So we end up with, in the Heart Sutra, we end up with all these negations. And they can tend to leave us feeling like, we know what perfect understanding is not. But what is it? As with koans, and this certainly is one, isn't it? This is the essential question, and asking it is the practice. What is it? The impermanence or the emptiness the Heart Sutra points to suggests that things, whether they're you and me, whether they're objects or people, animals, thoughts, flowers, feelings, or ideas, They appear to be real. They appear to be full and substantial. But when we confront them intimately through this practice, they pop like a balloon. Nothing there. Most disconcerting, this includes everything that I regard as being Geoff. All made up stuff. Pop, like a balloon. Norman says, quote, "It must be the case that things arise and pass away at the same moment." That's something to hang on to for a second. That there can't be any duration of time, any at all, any duration of time where anything abides. With apologies to Geoff, the dude notwithstanding. Norman goes on, beings are empty of, and he had a Sanskrit word for this that I should have written down, I don't remember what it was, but it translates as own being, O-W-N-being. Beings are empty of this own being. And to be empty of own being is to lack independent, substantial being, such as a soul or an essential consciousness that can be isolated and grasped. Norman says, our mistaken notion of own being, Geoff as a separate entity that is substantial, my mistaken notion of own being is what ties feeling sensation in a painful knot. What's the Heart Sutra say? It completely clears all pain. My mistaken notion of own being is what ties me, Geoff, and my feeling sensations into a painful knot. Letting go of that completely clears all pain. Extraordinary. And then what's most inspiring for me of what he says about this paramita, he says, if beings are empty of own being, what are they full of? And he answers his own question. They're full of connection. They're full of one another. They are so radically interdependent, they cannot exist in their own right as separate existent entities. There are, in fact, no things. There is only the endless there is only the endless ebb and flow of being. Which means I'm insubstantial, I'm just sitting here Geoffing. Or maybe I'm not even Geoffing. Geoffing is occurring. And every moment occurs and then goes away instantaneously. In so little time I can't even perceive it. To make this a little more approachable, John and Paul said, I am he as you are me, and we are all together. They also said cuckoo kajuk, but I won't try to translate that. Never did know what that meant. Practicing Prajna Paramita and embracing this emptiness and impermanence through our meditation, we have the opportunity to forget our small selves in exchange for everyone and everything. That's attractive. Fisher goes on in his talk about Prajna Paramita to consider, and this is a lengthy section, and I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but it's worth mentioning, to consider the nature of truth, not so much as a philosophical exercise, but as a practical challenge that arises from seeing things come and go, arise and pass away in the same moment. What does truth mean in that kind of an environment? On a political or a societal or a scientific level, this presents a bit of a dilemma. Norman asks, is anything true? What facts hold up? And once again, he tends to answer his own question. These are my words. The perfection of understanding doesn't claim to offer an understanding of something, nor is it an oracle at the ready to resolve debates and direct behavior, validate personal positions or opinions. The perfection of understanding leads us to our hearts and to our innate compassion based upon the experience of the one body. We may not have an all-encompassing understanding of everything that's going on, and most assuredly, I don't. No one does. But we do gain, if I can use that word, a way to navigate our lives from our true nature. Make decisions that have heart. He finishes these 29 pages, which again, I'll encourage you, if nothing else, read this chapter. He finishes it in the most befuddling way by saying, there's no way to practice the perfection of understanding. And he ends the sentence with an exclamation point. So I think he means it. Don't go looking for a way to do this. There isn't one. Then he follows up by saying, there is no way not to practice it. Everything we do, if we are alive and awake, let's just say paying attention, if we're embodied, if we're living, in our bodies, in our actions, in our work, when we're upset, when we're angry, when we're at our worst, then perfect understanding is right there. Sitting daily, sitting diligently, sitting earnestly with this question of what is it will lead to the unfolding of Prajna Paramita. I think, but I could be wrong. So thank you all so much for listening, and thank you.